welcome back to the channel. This is entry number 2. So kind of the first couple of minutes of this video, we're going to be touching upon just a couple of things that I ended up kind of undertaking and also beginning to develop for the purposes of this story, as well as its narratives and plot devices and events. So one of the points, or rather there are two main points I'll say first and foremost that we're kind of touching upon. So first we're going to be touching upon my character rewrites as well as my character development, and how my character development has actually affected my rewrites in a very good way. And then secondly, I kind of want to touch upon very briefly kind of this pseudo-religion that I'm also making for this story, which is going to be fairly important to its plot. Right now, kind of the religion itself has this working name where it's referred to as the Four, which I will jump into in a bit. But first, how have my character development efforts helped my rewriting? So one thing I've learned in my theater class that I kind of do, or not my theater class, my theater program that I do during the school year, is creating a very in-depth and detailed character history will always bear fruit when it comes to your performance, because you develop that character's voice, you develop who that character is. And when it comes to my rewrites, that has helped me exponentially. First and foremost, the thing that's probably helped the most is giving each character a goal / motivation within the story, because that, on top of the personality traits that I outlined for them, has given me a direction of where this character is going. It gives me the focal point of their lives, which informs all of the actions that they undertake within the story. So really, it's just like a clarifying force for me, which has made it abundantly, like 100% more clearer who the character I may be writing at any given moment is. Now, touching upon the second point that I wanted to talk about in this little intro bit was the pseudo-religion that I actually ended up crafting, currently am still crafting, for the purposes of this story, as well as its possible central role in the story as well. Now, as I refer to it, the Four, that's the name of the religion, pseudo-religion, is kind of based off of the four main male archetypes as outlined by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. So how did I end up coming up with this idea to begin with? So in the context of this story primarily, it takes place 380 years after a fairly catastrophic event. Kind of think on par in terms of severity, not with actual events, of the invasion of the Sea Peoples in the Bronze Age, late Bronze Age. Now, it's kind of been shown throughout history that a lot of religions will sometimes borrow from other religions, much older religions, to kind of beef up their own pantheons. Take, for example, ancient Rome, how they ended up borrowing in some sense from the Greeks as well as the Etruscans for their god Minerva. Now, from this context, how did I go about kind of forming the pantheon of the Four? I'll give one example. So kind of using each of the archetypes as the, well, archetype of each four of the deities: the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover. For the king, I ended up choosing the figure of Perseus from Greek mythology. Now, for starters, Perseus fit quite well for this archetype of the king, because one, he did actually become a king in the myth of a city in the region of Argos, of Tirins in the Peloponnese. I most likely butchered that. So very sorry if there is any history buffs or Greek mythology buffs watching this video. So not only did he become a king, but he also served a lot of the functions of the king archetype, as outlined in the myth itself. Kind of restoring order, killing Medusa, who was wreaking havoc amongst the people of Greece, killing the sea serpent Cetus, who was holding Andromeda, who would become his wife, hostage, who is also actually Andromeda, also a deity in the pantheon of the four. And then on top of all of that, bringing order out of the disorder, out of the chaos, he also very much so serves the function of bringing blessing, bringing fertility to the realm, kind of through his function of birthing many heirs as well as daughters too. All being central functions as outlined in the book by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette of this archetype of the king. Now, with that being said, I don't want to rant on about this too long because I could, and I probably would, however, quite ineffectively, because this is still a work in progress, and I would be rambling and talking about in circles. So, I'm going to enter this writing session, I'm going to come back afterwards, and we're going to talk about any creative little bits of new information I find out. Everyone, we have returned after our little writing session, and just as you may be noticing, this is indeed 2 days later from that original writing session because, well, life got pretty busy, so I didn't end up with the opportunity to, and I'm being distracted because of Discord. We didn't end up having the opportunity to kind of finish recording that day because, well, yeah, life gets busy, and well, things go on. But I'm here now to give you that promised check-in session after that little writing period, and it certainly kind of touching upon what I was saying in the first half of the video was the creative writing really aided me in kind of giving a really good flow into like the dialogue between the characters, especially between for example, this one character who is of a younger age, around 22 years of age, and his uncle, his older uncle, who is essentially right-hand man to the guy who runs the realm. And kind of how it helped that was giving direction to the personality traits that I outlined in the first video, and how those personality traits kind of arise in different situations because of that motivation slash goal that I ended up kind of establishing for each character. So that was really good to see, and honestly made me feel really good about just the writing process in general, is that I felt more confident in it, and I felt way more natural in it rather than just kind of doing like the bare minimum amount of character work and then trying to write naturally just like that. So I mean, surprise, surprise, putting in the work actually does make one feel good. And then another thing was kind of because of that confidence I gained with writing the character themselves through that character development work, it also kind of bled into like my other uh writing uh sections, possibly you could say. Or rather, here, let me restart because that's a whole lot of word vomit right there. uh I would have to say that confidence from the characters kind of bled into the writing style I would have for describing like the actual environments of the story as well. And it almost made me like more impassioned about the describing of the actual environments of the story. And like the best way I could probably extrapolate that and expand on that statement would be the reason why it made me more passionate about that writing is because these characters are alive, is because these characters do experience these surroundings. And when they're in it, they take it all in. They see the clouds, they see the hanging gardens in town square or in the town center. And they can't help but notice it and take it in as what it is nature. It's their home. It's the damp, moist air after an overcast day finally begins to clear. So that confidence in writing the characters bled into the confidence I had in describing the environment, and just overall made it far more enjoyable. And then touching upon like the actual writing of the characters themselves, I'm really starting to like a certain character who is also the main character. So I mean, go figure. I mean, picking the popular kid out of the story so far. But yeah, no. Like I said, the confidence with writing the characters are really starting to show, and they're starting to form their own personalities. And I remember reading something in particular from the science of storytelling about how when authors get really connected to a book, to their book rather, and their writing process of it and their characters in that book, it's almost kind of like they start hearing that character's voice, or thinking thoughts that that character would think in a sense. And it very much so is that, yes, of course, you bring to life that character from yourself, but eventually that character ends up taking a life of their own. So much so to the fact, or to the point, that, as Will Storr described, they become their own person within you. And I know that sounds very much so like, what the fuck? This guy got like fucking multiple personalities or some shit? Fucking split? I'm gonna start crawling up walls and ceilings. Um, but yeah, that is probably one of the things I'm really looking forward to when it comes to this creative writing process, is breathing in so much life into all of these characters that they eventually kind of become part of me or start speaking to me. Undoubtedly, by breathing life into these characters, I'm going to find out things about my own life that I more than likely didn't even know about, or didn't even know was a part of me before. And I mean, that's kind of the whole point of every journey, right? Like I mentioned in the first video, adventures and good stories aren't just where the hero character or the lead protagonist kind of stay the same throughout. There's always some kind of meaningful change that goes along with that. And to me, with this writing of this novel, I want it to provoke change. Uncomfortable change, maybe. Meaningful change, probably. Meaningful change, most definitely. Actually, let me amend that. Meaningful change, most definitely. Uh, because I mean, shit. If you're not changing, if you're not going through hard shit in life, from what I have learned, is there's gonna be no growth at all. And that a little piece of food for thought for you. So very sorry if that provokes any existential crises. Uh, but with that being said, this is the end of the video. As always, thank you. I appreciate you coming to join me on this little adventure. And if you feel so inclined, and if you are interested at all, please consider subscribing. So, I wish you a good day, good evening, if you're in different time zones than me, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers. Morning coffee.